it's Mohammad Talha. Today I am going to discuss k-mean clustering. We will discuss the algorithm of k-mean clustering and its code in Python as well. First of all, we will see what is clustering. The organization of unlabeled data into a similarity group called clusters. Clustering is a task of dividing the datasets into a certain number of clusters in such a manner that the data points belonging to a cluster have similar characteristics. Clusters are nothing but the grouping of datasets such that the distance between the data points within the clusters is minimal. Now we will see what is k-mean clustering. K-mean clustering algorithm is defined as an unsupervised learning method having an iterative process in which the datasets are grouped into k-means k number of predefined non-overlapping clusters of or subgroups, making the inner points of the clusters as similar as possible. While trying to keep the clusters at distant space, it allocates the data points to the cluster so that the sum of the squared distance between the cluster centroid and the data point is at minimum. At this point, the centroid of the cluster is the arithmetic mean of the data points that are in the clusters. K-mean clustering algorithm needs the following input. K is equal to number of subgroups or clusters. Sample or training sets. Now let us assume we have the data sets that is unlabeled and we need to divide it into the clusters. Step 1. First initialize any random points called the centroid of the clusters. While initializing, you must take care that the centroid of the clusters must be less than the number of training data points. This algorithm is an iterative algorithm. Step 2. Clusters assignment. After initialization, all the data points are transferred and the distance between all the centroid and the data points are calculated. Now the clusters would be formed depending upon the minimum distance from the centroid. In the example, the data is divided into the two clusters. Step 3. Moving centroid. As the cluster formed in the above step are not optimized, so we need to form optimized cluster. For this, we need to move the centroid iterative to the next location. Take data points of one centroid, compute the average, and then move the centroid of the cluster to the new position. Repeat the same step for all the clusters. Step 4. Optimization. The above two steps are done iteratively until the centroids stop moving. They do not change their position anymore and have some static. Once this is done, the k-mean cluster algorithm is termed to be converged. Step 5. Convergence. Now the algorithm has converged. The distant clusters are formed and clearly visible that the algorithm and give different results depending on how the clusters were initialized in the first step. Now let's code of k-mean cluster in Python.